third down and goal now. They hand the ball to Mostert. There's the record. Touchdown. His 19th touchdown of the year, breaking the team record held by Mark Clayton previously.
Some fantasy football players reached out to me on social media and just wanted me to say thank you.
Oh, yeah. I know that Jake Bailey is going to be super happy. You know, I helped him out with his fantasy. I mean, each week this guy comes up to me. He's just like, hey, I got you lined up today, so you better not disappoint me. And I'm like, I got you, bro. Don't worry about it. Like, I know the game plan, and hopefully, you know, it helps you. But last week he was like, hey, you know, I got a bye week thanks to you. That's what I'm talking about. We're in this together, brother. You know.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That's right. That was Raheem Mostert at the top of the show, and he drinks free. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry and Jay Croucher. Raheem Mostert just gets it.
He does.
He buys into it.
Well, listen, friend of the show, friend of the podcast, Raheem the Dream, Raheem must start. He's been nothing short of phenomenal this year. He not only has been great for the Dolphins, obviously, but fantasy football, one of, if not the fantasy football MVP when you think about where he went in drafts and his production as well. And so he drinks free today at the happy hour, not only helping out Jake Bailey's fantasy team, but all of our fantasy teams in a Week 15 of fantasy playoff where so many players disappointed, and we're going to get to some of them in a minute. Raheem Mostert showed up, as did this guy.
Yes, he did. And everyone's talking about Christian McCaffrey's amazing season and the amount of touchdowns he scored. Raheem Mostert's got the exact same amount of touchdowns.
Yes.
They both have 20 touchdowns. It's incredible. Raheem is just one of the nicest people I've ever met as well. Just an incredibly kind person. So wish him nothing but the best. And it's great to see that he's been able to stay healthy this season, which has been key. So hopefully
he's
he
a
can
great
get that
story.
Going. Yeah, he is.
Undrafted.
Guy just runs for 5 yards per carry wherever he gets to. Yeah, he's been incredible.
Him and Mike McDaniel, they go everywhere together, and it's worked out really well for both of them in Miami, and that's where we'll start with the Rotoworld player news as the Dolphins offense went wild against the Jets, even without Tyreek Hill in this game. Obviously, the headliner was Mostert because he had the 2 touchdowns, 15 carries, 42 yards. Most importantly was those 2 scores as we show you the touchdown leaders through Week 16. As you said it, Jay, there's Mostert at the top with Run CMC, each with 20. And what's amazing is the tier after them in Jalen Hurts and Tyreek Hill, they have 12. These 2 guys are so far away from the pack.
Well, the next running back as well is even further down with 11, with Gus Edwards, and then Kyren Williams, 11, who's missed a large chunk of the season. So I think this was a great performance from Miami. One, to do this against the Jets defense, and keen for your thoughts on how that happened, Connor. And then also to do it with a banged up offensive line, no Tyreek Hill. There are a lot of Tua, and I think they were becoming some Mike McDaniel skeptics as well. Like, does he just beat up on bad teams? Yeah. How much of it is just Tyreek Hill? So for them to have this performance where they really dominated from the start was really impressive. But like, what happened to the Jets defense?
The Jets didn't get off the plane, bus, whatever you want to call it. They looked flat. They looked lifeless. It looked like this team quit, quite frankly. And you know, the other thing with Waddle going off, you knew going into the game he was going to be the guy in the pass game. The Jets don't travel their corners. Sauce Gardner barely saw any of Jaylen Waddle, and DJ Reed had a really, really bad game. So at the end of the day, brutal for the Jets defense, but like you said, a confidence builder for Tua here, Matthew, that he got it done without what a lot of people deem as maybe the most valuable player in the
not
league.
A great fantasy day for Tua. He was on the hate list coming into the week, and that ended up working out. But coming into the game, we didn't know would Tyreek Hill go or not. We thought he might. And then he didn't. He's ruled out. Reports after the game were like he wasn't even close this week. They do expect him back this week, which is good. But it didn't matter. It ended up, Zach Wilson gets sacked, fumbles. They get the ball like on the 3-yard line. Mostert converts the bunny touchdown there. But just specifically to Mostert here, not only has he been amazing this entire year, but specifically heading into the playoffs and then in the first round of the playoffs, multiple touchdowns in 3 of the past 4 games as well. I think this is a crazy stat on Mostert. Coming into this year, he had 19 career touchdowns. For his career, 19 touchdowns. He's got 20 this season. Just to show what a magical season it has been for him as well. And then, I don't know that there's much else to take away. Devon Achane didn't really get going. Looked fine. They didn't need to. That was the problem. Is just the Jets were so anemic offensively that the Dolphins didn't really have to do much. It was nice to see Jaylen Waddle, who heads into Monday Night Football as the second best wide receiver in fantasy. He's now had a 32% target share in 2 of the last 3 games, and he's just killed the Jets. 16 for 256 and a touchdown in the 2 games against New York this season as well. This was his season high in both fantasy points and receiving yards. It could not have come at a better moment there as you see the most awkward Waddle in NFL history. Stephen Ross, his wife, and some
He actually sold the team after that. He was forced to sell the team by
fair.
the Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Yeah, he should have been forced to. Yeah, I mean, like.
I think it's huge for Jaylen Waddle, just the fact that, you know, this year, and Connor and I were talking about this in the makeup room, as we do have so many good chats, I believe on Friday, about how Waddle has been really disappointing this season. But I mean, last year he had 6 games of 100+ receiving yards. Coming to this game, he'd had 2 for the year. Now this is his 3rd, and I think just a game like this, it dispels any notion that he's hurt or there's something wrong with him. And now I think those guys, because we expect Tyreek back next week, those guys are going to cook Dallas. I don't think Deron Bland and Stephon Gilmore, with the speed of those two, I think they're in trouble, Dallas.
By the way, games in Miami as well, so Dallas is going to have to travel as well. I mean, and we're going to get to this game in a little bit here, but they got, you know, they got rolled by Buffalo. They got, you know, dump trucked. I mean, whatever, pick your adjective, pick your verb.
Hoofed.
Hoofed. They got hoofed.
Yeah, they got hoofed out of the stadium.
They got hoofed out of the stadium. They absolutely did by the Buffalo Bills. It makes sense. They were hoofed multiple times. And so you think about what James Cook did to the Cowboys, and now here comes Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and the Dolphins that should have Tyreek Hill back. Things are looking up in Finland, as it were. Things are looking down.
As opposed to Helsinki, the Dolphins, Finland, correct.
Dolphins.
Finland.
I haven't heard Finland before. Yeah, should they drape themselves in Finnish flags? That's not bad, actually.
Just something like, you know, also just I'm thinking, you know, meaning I'm a Buffett guy, so fins up, fins to the left. You know, whatever, the Dolphins.
Maybe Tua comes in with a Laurie Markkinen jersey. You won't get that reference, but he's a Finnish basketball player.
I assumed he was, you know, some sort of Finnish descent.
Just with the Jets, expect Zach Wilson. I mean, he was injured and he may not play this coming week. I think everything just burns again. And I understand that they played the Commanders in a favorable matchup, so you probably have to start Garrett Wilson, but you don't feel good about any Jet if it's the Trevor Siemian show.
The line, for as bad as it's been this year, this is the worst it's been. I mean, it didn't matter who was back there. Zach Wilson, this is one where you really felt bad for him. He got rocked in the head on that strip sack on one of the first plays for them. I mean, then he played a little bit, and then he came out for dehydration, and then they're like, actually, he's concussed.
Wasn't there a wrist? There was a wrist as well at one point.
I mean, just some horrible
dehydrated, he's got a wrist, he's concussed. He might be dead. We don't know.
Right, it really felt that way.
It really,
yes.
Missing his favorite TV show.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's past his bedtime.
You know what the best thing is, though, is that even with it potentially being the Trevor Siemian show, even with the line in the state.
Brett Rippon
show. Jets are 3-point favorites home to the Commanders.
There we go.
That's ridiculous.
There we go.
That is ridiculous.
No, honestly, being serious, I like the Commanders.
I was going to say me too.
I like Commanders +3.
Me too.
They at least have a quarterback, whoever the quarterback's going to be, I presume it's Sam Howell. This thing can throw the ball and do NFL stuff. Jets can't do NFL stuff on offense.
No, it's
never underestimate Ron Rivera's ability to underprepare his team for a matchup.
No, that's not how it works. He overprepares them. They win to screw themselves in draft position. That's how the story goes.
This is true. I mean, whatever. The Commanders for years and years and years have continually screwed themselves out of a good draft position. They should have had Joe Burrow. They should have had Joe Burrow. But the Dolphins, again, they beat the Dolphins, and that gives them the number 2 pick instead of the number 1, and they draft Chase Young instead of Joe Burrow.
He's on your Niners now.
Right, and now, then they had to get rid of Chase Young for like a 3rd and a 4th.
This is a movable object against a stoppable force on Christmas Eve. The Barry Rogers Bowl.
It really is.
What a disgrace.
I'm rooting for the Jets.
And I'm rooting for the Commanders.
Yeah, I know.
Like, this could decide where Marvin Harrison goes.
Yeah.
I'm serious here.
And no, I understand. Like, what's at stake and Ron's fighting for his job, even though, like, Ron, you ain't coming back. I get, it's the holidays, and I feel, listen, and I do not celebrate anyone losing their job. It is awful because it affects families, it affects assistant coaches, it affects people inside the building, it affects kids. It sucks, right? It is the worst part of having a job like what Coach Rivera and other people in the NFL have, right? Or any sort of professional sports, is that the shelf life is short. And so that part stinks. I'm not celebrating that. Having said that, he's been a coach for 4 years. They've had a losing record every single year. They haven't gotten any better. In fact, they've gotten worse. If you look at what the offensive line was when Ron Rivera got there, that had Trent Williams, that had Brendan Scherf, that had like really, really good guys.
Yeah.
And now you look what their offensive line is. Like, it's objectively gotten worse over his tenure where he had in control of player personnel. Anyway, whatever. Go Jets.
Yeah, go
Please.
Commanders. Win one for Ron.
Man. It'll be
Win
like
for
who
Ron.
can,
At least with that hashtag on
At least
Twitter.
in the Rogers-Berry Bowl, there won't be any Aaron Rodgers,
Right,
it seems like.
right,
Is that we can finally put that to bed. I hope. I'm sure
No,
there'll be
it's
another
done.
report.
It's done.
No, he's going to practice. He'll practice this week. Please.
Limited on the practice report.
Yeah,
We love to
come
see
on.
it.
Are you kidding me? Like, they're going to keep bringing it up to game time as well. I think you're still starting Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. This is a tough one.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's too good a matchup against the Commanders. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
We'll get into the ranks and we get through for the weeks. I'm guessing this will be a burning question next Saturday as well when we do our special Saturday edition of Fantasy Football Pregame. But yeah, just a bad day at the office for the Jets and good win for the Dolphins.
More on the Commanders in just a bit. Before we get there, we kind of hinted at the Bills' throttling of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen, after the game, said it's honestly quite easy for him with the run game that Buffalo had. Take a listen to Allen after the game.
I don't think I threw the ball that many times, which, again, I don't just get it done. Let's just find a way to win. And, felt like the kid that didn't do anything in the class project but got an A. But, again, I'll do this 10 times out of 10 times, man. Like, this, keep going.
So, yeah, we've heard that quote a lot, but it's a great quote, 100%. Definitely feel like, I honestly, to be perfectly honest, sometimes I feel, Jay, that's you. Just like you feel like you didn't.
Good Lord.
Wow.
I was just trying to think of who would throw a shot at it.
Hoofed me out of the stadium
I
as
did,
well
hoofed you
with
out
the
of the
Dallas
stadium,
Cowboys.
yes.
Me and Dak Prescott are lying sprawled on the pavement.
It was you or Connor. I couldn't decide, and I whatever.
right.
You were
Oh,
my
your
eye
gut
line.
feeling. Yeah.
You were my eye line. So sorry.
Unbelievable.
Tough scene, Jay.
Yeah.
Any response?
Tough scene. It's a kind of a tangential comparison of me to Josh Allen, so I'll cop that. But this feels like the first game. This isn't true, but it feels like the first game in his entire career Josh Allen's ever gotten help against a good team.
It does.
Like, when has it ever happened?
Yeah.
When has he ever been allowed to throw 15 passes and win a game in a blowout fashion? And the fact that the Bills were able to dominate so much on both lines of scrimmage, I mean, that was the story. And James Cook was a massive beneficiary of that and obviously played very well in his own right. But I think that this bodes well going forward, given that they play the Chargers and the Patriots the next 2 weeks, they play the Dolphins, which might be for the division, in Week 18. And James Cook, who we've been waiting to break out, with the change of offensive coordinator, he's been an absolute monster.
Since Joe Brady took over as the interim offensive coordinator, I'm glad you brought this up, Jay. He's averaging 24.1 fantasy points per game.
Yeah.
He's the third best running back in fantasy football. He's running between the tackles. They're using him in the passing game. And what's weird is that he's actually left some points on the field. Like, as good as he's been over this stretch, there have been a couple
Touchdown
plays.
against Philly, dropped out.
Right, exactly. There was, a fumble here or there, a couple of drop passes as well. But, under Brady, he's averaging 21 touches a game. He's got a 15% target share. Even in a game in which, they pushed Latavius Murray into the end zone, Cook still has a monster game. He's the second best running back in football as we head into Monday Night Football. And look at his upcoming schedule. That the Chargers, by the way, that's on Saturday. That's the exclusive Peacock game. Go get yourself some Peacock. If you want a 12-month subscription to Peacock, you can go to subscribe to rotopass.com and get all these great fantasy sites, including a 12-month subscription to Peacock. It's 12 months. So basically it gets you to football season, draft season next year. These are all the sites that I use, rotopass.com. It's a terrific deal. It's literally the best deal on the internet. And I'm a company man, let's be clear. But with Cook, he is somebody that I feel like is now, for the rest of the season, is an RB1. Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins. You don't love the matchup against the Patriots, but he's running so hot. I don't know how you take him out of the lineup.
Yep. If you were to start the season again today and draft every running back again, McCaffrey goes 1 clearly. I think Kyren Williams probably goes 2, honestly. And then I think 3 is James Cook or Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
If Taylor comes back next week. That's the kind of discussion that he's in, I think.
I mean, Raheem Mostert has had a pretty good year.
I know, but Achan is, a lot of that's come without Achan too. But Raheem is RB2 on the season.
Yeah.
But if you're starting again today and
starting
Achan's
today.
in the picture, I think that James Cook is right in that mix, given the way
Yes.
that he's played under Joe Brady.
He's an RB1, and it's interesting. So we talk about, coming into the season, James Cook was in that tier of hey, there's these mid-tier, these 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round guys, depending on how deep your league is and how running back crazy your league is, that are going in that mid-tier range that we think have the possibility to pop. Meanwhile, Tony Pollard was a top 15 overall pick. He was the poster child for our Rotoworld draft guide. Got to own that. And James Cook was the better running back, and it wasn't particularly close. Real life-wise and fantasy-wise, I don't know that's all on Pollard, but still, this was a bad one, and good for the Bills, to your point about, so long we've talked about this, that Buffalo has just basically said, okay, Josh, here's your Superman cape. Yep. Go win this for us. And they did two things. They ran the ball terrifically. James Cook has over 200 yards from scrimmage. He's one of only 2 running backs in the NFL this year with at least 220 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns in a game. The other guy is Devon Achane. Just when you think about how insane this game is for James Cook. We didn't have a James Cook jersey. I easily could have worn that as well. But the other thing is that their defense, which came into the game super banged up, and yet Dak Prescott, he's no longer got to be in the MVP conversation. He can't be. This was an awful performance by the entire Cowboys performance. By the entire Cowboys team, 21-34 for 134 yards and a pick. His fewest fantasy points in a game since week 5. His fewest passing yards in a game this season. He averaged under 4 yards per attempt. Everyone was bad. Pollard was bad. Single-digit fantasy points for him. Fewest points in a game since week 10. He's now had 6 different games with single-digit fantasy points this season. CeeDee Lamb bails you out with a rushing touchdown, but bad day at the office for the Cowboys. Start to finish with 3 minutes left in the game. The Cowboys had 3 points.
Yep. And we'll get to MVP when we talk the San Francisco game. But Dak, he's done. He's not coming back from that. He couldn't afford to have that loss. And the thing is, too, is watching this game, he had 1 interception. He could have had 5. They dropped an easy one. He was just all over the place. And I think the story about this Dallas offense, this Dallas team, has been when they go on the road, they are just not nearly the same team that they are at home in the dome. They look completely different. They look so much slower. They look lethargic. They just couldn't do anything yesterday on either line of scrimmage, and that doesn't bode well going outdoors on the road again next week at Miami.
Right, and then the week after that, they do get a home game, but it's against Detroit.
Yeah,
Detroit's no pushover.
Yeah,
right.
They look revived.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So and then they
get a pushover.
They get my Commanders, and so they get a win in week 18. But They might be on a 3-game losing streak heading into that game against my Commanders.
They're going to have to be a 5 seed and play San Francisco on the road in game 2.
Which is brutal for them.
Right.
Yeah. And then they're probably going to have to play Philadelphia on the road if they somehow pull off the upset and beat San Francisco, which I don't think they're going to do.
No, I don't think so either.
Tough times for Dallas.
They'll have to, the first round, they'll have to go to the NFC South.
They're no lock to beat Baker Mayfield and the Bucs.
No.
The way they are playing. Yeah.
They're not.
They probably will, but it's no
but
lock.
It's not a lock.
Yeah.
We move over to the Commanders.
What would you make the look headline? If I said, the Bucs have won the NFC South and the Cowboys are the 5 seed. Cowboys at Bucs.
I think that would still be like Cowboys -6.
I agree.
Still minus 6.5.
Let's not get ahead of our skis here.
But it's not like a 10-point line. It's not going to be double digits or anything,
Yeah.
which it might be against the Falcons, but they're not going to win that division anymore.
No, I think it's the Bucs. All right.
The Rams take care of business against the Commanders.
Yes.
Cooper Kupp catches all 8 of his targets for 111 yards and a touchdown. No surprise here. Now
where's Cooper Kupp? Whoa! There he is.
It's like practice against air.
I don't think I could be an NFL quarterback.
You couldn't have caught that. It was a little out in
front
of him.
No. But I think I could have hit him in stride with this one.
You would have been open.
You can't hit the proper shot from 3 meters away.
Yeah. But the proper shot doesn't move. Let's look at these next-gen stats right here. Kupp had 17 yards of separation from the nearest defender, the second most separation on a completion of over 50 yards of air distance in the next-gen stats era since 2016. Completion probability 73.6%. That's powered by AWS Cloud.
Completion probability's got to be 100%.
And I retweeted something. Can we go back, Steven? Show that play again. So this is we're watching the dots, the AWS, the next-gen stats dots. But I want to show you the play again, and I'm going to ask you to slow it down when we get to the play. I want to show this.
Good luck.
Wait, hang on. All right. Watch this. Stop right here if you can. All right. Well, you weren't able to. It doesn't matter. But if you watch the sidelines of it, right? If you go down, you go close right here. If you see at the bottom of your screen, there's Emmanuel Forbes. You see there on the sideline. Ron Rivera's first-round pick of Emmanuel Forbes, who couldn't get on the field, is just sitting there watching blown coverage
pointing
against.
As well.
Hey,
well, that's
there
what
he
it's like
is.
when he's on the field. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
Different.
He was
boy.
I'm just like, that's the epitome of the Commanders' offense. Guy I follow on Twitter, Chad Ryan, pointed that out. Does a great job. He is critical as well as I am of the organization. That play is just the microcosm of how bad the team is, how bad they've been over the last 4 years. Again, just a complete failure of preparation, of skill players, of drafting. Like, I mean, is Forbes the biggest first-round bust? Real talk for a second. Is Forbes the biggest first-round bust? It's too early to tell of this draft.
He's the front runner. Yeah, he's the front runner. Because, some guys haven't gotten to play a lot because they were drafted as developmental picks and they've only flashed.
Tyree Wilson's been pretty bad.
He has. He came in with a foot injury.
Yeah, that's fair.
It was going to take a while to come. He missed all the OTAs. And Forbes was healthy and he can't play right now. I hope it changes for him, but you can't put him on the field in any capacity. Right. Not even in a limited role, not as a dime corner. There's nothing you could really do with him.
I saw people comparing that play to the play where McCaffrey falls over and is still able to run in the touchdown.
Yeah.
But that's different because Purdy evaded pressure. That was a broken play when McCaffrey got out. This one was just snap the ball wide open.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp goes in motion and they're just
nobody follows.
Yeah, we're just somebody else will get him, right? Somebody else will get him. Honestly, the Commanders' defense is like my kids at home who just leave empty cereal bowls and clothes all over the place. So somebody else will get that.
They freelance.
Somebody else will pick it up.
Yeah.
There you go. And it annoys me. But in fairness, they're 12.
Yeah.
They're not highly paid professionals, and they're not facing Cooper Kupp, who's one of the best wide receivers in football. That play is just everything about the Commanders. Yep. And I don't know, did you see Rivera's reaction on the sideline? Oh, no. Can I get a solo of this? This was Ron's reaction, which I loved. It was just like this.
That's not a bad Ron Rivera. It's good because there's no voice accompanying it, which would have probably.
He doesn't speak.
Yeah.
He doesn't move. He doesn't change facial expressions. He's just sort of what just happened?
Yeah.
He knows it's over. It's tough.
It's like when they got eliminated from the playoffs last year and didn't realize. Yeah.
He said some version of, I don't know if this was a made-up quote or not. I saw this on Twitter. I don't know if this was an actual quote or not.
But to him anyway.
But there's somebody put out there that Ron said something about Jacoby Brissett. If I'd known he was that good, I would have started him sooner. That can't be true.
No,
that can't possibly be true.
You definitely got whatever we call it these days.
Would fit with the Ron aesthetic, though. But
it would be.
Yes.
I don't know if it's true or not. I'm sure it isn't.
It's definitely not. It's 500 to 1 to be true.
It's not 100% out of the realm of possibility that he said it. I'm just saying.
Boy, poor Sam Howell.
Yeah, poor Sam Howell.
It's like Tepper saying, blame me for not drafting CJ Stroud. That decision's on me. Bryce Young's still your quarterback,
Yes,
man.
he's going to be your quarterback for at least another year or two.
Rivera did say that Howell, speaking of that, I don't know what there is to say about the Rams other than, listen, big day at the office, obviously, for Cooper Kupp. It was Kyren Williams had a huge day. Yeah. Stafford delivered the way he did. Not a huge game for Puka Nacua, but again, just Commanders couldn't keep it competitive. The game was more of a blowout than the score indicates. They scored twice quickly when Howell was replaced by Jacoby Brissett. Brissett looked great. A couple of dimes to Terry McLaurin. As a Commanders fan, I am very glad that Jacoby Brissett did not see his first action of the year until this. Because this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. Which is that Jacoby Brissett is good.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't want him to be good.
Jets would be in the playoffs.
Right. Oh, Jets would 100% be in the playoffs with Jacoby Brissett.
Browns might win the Super Bowl.
Right, Browns would win the Super Bowl.
8 of 10, 124 yards and 2 touchdowns after replacing Sam Howell in the fourth quarter. He just threw a couple of dimes to Terry McLaurin. Looked absolutely great. And, by the way, but you don't want that. No. Jacoby Brissett's not your quarterback of the future. What happened with it, I'll give Ron Rivera credit on this. What happened with the Commanders this year is what should have happened, which is you got to play Howell all year long and see what you have. And either you find out you've got a franchise quarterback or you're bad enough and you have a shot to pick one early next year. And I think both things are true. I actually think Howell can play in the NFL. I think, all jokes aside, I think Howell proved he can play in the NFL.
Sure.
Is he a franchise quarterback? Is he a Josh Allen? Is he a guy that can, a Joe Burrow? I don't know about that. But do I think he has Kirk Cousins level potential? I do.
Would be great.
You know what I mean? I think he's got Derek Carr upside.
I'd rather have Sam Howell or Bryce Young starting your team tomorrow. Honestly,
we've seen more from Howell this year. There's no denying it. There's no denying it. And I say this every show we talk about Howell in this light. He once upon a time was a projected first-round pick. This isn't like the Jake Browning story, right? That's not what this is. This guy has talent.
Yeah, he's got all the tools.
Yeah, his draft fall was just bizarre. It was an overcorrection.
Yeah, and listen, it's his third different offense coordinator in 3 years, going back to North Carolina as well. He's had a bad offensive line and inconsistency. But What I will say is, here's what I'll say. They've already said Howell's going to start next week against the Jets. This is interesting. I'm in our show league playoff. Yeah. It looks like I'm going to have to play Penn State Blake.
Showdown.
He's got McCaffrey and Brock Purdy. Yeah. This is very.
He's got a good team. I found out the hard way.
Yeah, he took care of you. Yeah. You were like second place much of the year.
Yep.
I was sixth, and I destroyed backup producer Pete. Absolutely housed him.
Pete didn't
add him to the hoof list.
Pete
with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
Pete did not get off the bus. I don't think he made it to 100 points.
No. Well, he had Bijan. He had Zach Wilson as his starting quarterback. In his Superflex.
It's so brutal. But anyway, the reason I bring this up is so for all year long, it's again our league's a Superflex. I've been riding Jalen Hurts and Sam Howell.
Yeah.
And next week I'm against Penn State Blake. And so here's my options. I've got Hurts. I've got Howell. I've got Joe Flacco.
I'm
starting Flacco. I mean, at the moment, I'm like Howell versus the Jets or Flacco versus I forget who they play, but it's the Texans. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Flacco. I'm saying Howell in a super flex playoff next week for Gardner Minshew.
I don't know. I mean, again, we don't know what's going to happen with Brian Robinson, but I don't feel good about any of these guys against the Jets. Yep. Coming up next, and so whatever. It's a disaster of a season for but glad that McLaurin was able to bail out fantasy managers. By the way, and had an unbelievable one-handed catch that didn't count. But if you see the replay, like he's getting the other hand is unavailable. He had to catch it with one hand, but they didn't call it. Whatever.
It's been a good year for the refs of the NFL. Let's move to Bucks Packers as we talk about these Bucks here, Jay. Baker Mayfield, 4 touchdowns. Joe Barry's Green Bay defense, I mean, kind of a laughing stock in this one. Let's just call it like it is. The Bucks go absolutely wild against this Packers team that felt like a couple weeks ago we were like, wow, look at the Packers' schedule. They might win out.
No one wants to play the Packers in the playoffs.
Now everybody wants to play the Packers during the regular season.
I'd love to play the Packers in the playoffs, and they're not going to be making the playoffs, I suspect, after this absolute debacle. And look, the story will be the Tampa Bay offense and Baker Mayfield having a perfect passer rating in Lambeau. The Bucs are now clear favorites to win the NFC South. Huge day for Chris Godwin, who's had somewhat of an underwhelming season, but he's broken out in a big way. Goes 10 for 155. The fact that they're able to do this as well, just Mike Evans having 4 receptions.
Can you just stop for 1 second here and just marvel at this? Look at this. The Week 15 fantasy playoffs, fantasy leaders at quarterback: Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Aiden O'Connell, Brock Purdy, Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Jake Browning. It's not until quarterback 8, Lamar Jackson, do you get to any quarterback that was drafted anywhere close to the top 10. Stafford and Russell Wilson. Jackson's the only guy that went inside the top 5, and in fact, I think none of these guys were drafted inside the top 12 among quarterbacks.
Goff would have been the highest.
Browning, Minshew, Purdy, O'Connell, Mayfield weren't drafted in most leagues. Goff definitely went undrafted in some leagues, as did Purdy in some leagues, depending on the size of it. But standard 10 or 12 team quarterback leagues, 8 of these guys.
Yeah, and just not far after this list would be Nick Mullins and Easton Stick, who were both 18 plus.
The stick man.
Yeah, the way we score. So, going back to Tampa Bay, Green Bay.
And we still have Jalen Hurts to play tonight, and Jalen Hurts has been good. But again,
Drew Lock could go off against the Eagles defense.
1,000%. I mean, whatever. Josh Allen was bad. No fault of his own. But Josh Allen was bad. Number of guys are injured. Mahomes is bad. Again, fantasy-wise.
Yeah, and we're just missing everybody. When you look at it right now, no Joe Burrow, no Justin Herbert. Like, the amount of season-ending injuries this year has been insane.
It's true. But Fields didn't have a great game. Trevor Lawrence didn't have a great game. And just in terms of guys that were drafted among the top 8 quarterbacks.
Baker Mayfield also
Dak had a bad game.
Another quarterback who wasn't drafted in the top 8. And I think that, he'll be a viable starter next week against the Jags defense, which is really struggling at the moment. Baker had a tough month. I think he was dealing maybe with an ankle injury that he'd had in Indianapolis, but certainly looks all the way back. And that team is rolling at the moment. And then on the other side, Jordan Love was able to get his numbers, but that team's heading in the wrong direction. Jayden Reed, the big story of the skill position players.
Him and Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks had a nice little game. I do too. I think he replaces Dobbs next year, Romeo Dobbs next year. So we like that as well. 3 of the last 4 games for Jayden Reed, just as long as we're talking about him. He's had a 22% target share, now 17 fantasy points in back-to-back games. They play the Panthers next week. That's at Carolina, which is not a great matchup. The Panthers' defense has been pretty good, especially in the secondary. So not a great matchup. Jordan Love gets you there, but did not look the part. It was a better fantasy performance than NFL performance. And to your point about Baker Mayfield, good for Baker.
Yeah,
like this was a big win for him. First 3 drives of the second half were all touchdown passes. Now some of them he got help, the David Moore one, but whatever. It's still all looks the same in the box score. He played well. I was surprised to find out the stat, but he had a perfect quarterback rating, and he's only the second guy ever to have that at Lambeau.
Yeah.
It's him and Aaron Rodgers. One game that Aaron Rodgers had. I mean, it's
contract year, good for Baker.
Good for Baker.
Yeah, he'll probably be back.
And you know what's interesting is if he leads the Bucs to the playoffs, and I think he's going to.
Yeah, me too.
Like I think he was viewed as a stopgap measure for Tampa Bay. Like just he's on a 1-year deal. Just like we need a starting quarterback. You're a starting quarterback.
He's got to be the guy next year. If he closes like this and they win the division, he was a #1 pick in the draft. He has pedigree, and he's had really good seasons in the past. He's been banged up, bounced around, weird scenarios. He's on the Rams last year. He's on the Rams.
Yeah, like
leading
start.
99 yards. Panthers to the Rams. Panthers were a mess. Rams, he played okay there, but he just gotten there.
Yep. I think he's the guy.
I don't think they have a lot of confidence in Kyle Trask. They're not going to pick early enough to get a guy. I mean, maybe they draft somebody developmentally, but they're not going to be able to be in with a franchise guy. And so, Baker leads them to the playoffs and save Todd Bowles' job.
Yeah.
I don't know how you go away from Baker next year.
Agreed.
Our final game, guys, the 49ers handled business against Arizona. No surprise on the back of that man. No, not Matthew Berry, but Christian McCaffrey. 18 carries, 115 yards. You do look alike. And a touchdown, 5 catches, 72 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's what he's done all year.
This is just a stupid game. I mean, he's the only player this year with 41 or more fantasy points multiple times this season. Shout out to all the fantasy managers who said, nah, I want Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase instead of Christian McCaffrey. Look, I mean, I'll own it. I had him at number 2 overall in my rankings, but I saw him go as 5 or 6 in some leagues easily. He's stayed healthy. He's proven why he's Christian McCaffrey, why he's fantasy royalty. I'm wearing this to honor our one true king. He's been ridiculous. I mean, it's just here's what's the other thing that's crazy about that game. It all felt, I get it. It's Arizona. But still, it felt effortless.
It is.
It felt effortless.
This team just scores automatically every time they go down the field. This is one of the greatest offenses of all time. And just everyone helps each other. Ayuk and Debo being there, that helps Brock. It helps Kittle. It helps CMC. And they have the best play caller in the NFL, maybe the best coach in the NFL. And also, it wasn't so much the case yesterday because it's the Cardinals, and I don't think they were fully engaged on defense from the start. But they've also got a top 5 defense in the NFL, so they get the ball back quickly and they go down and score again. It feels like you need a miracle to stop these guys 2 times in a row.
It's so weird because he does not run, Brock Purdy. And yet, since week 10, he's the second best quarterback in fantasy football. He's had back-to-back games now with 4 touchdown passes. Again, it just feels effortless. They're at home to Baltimore this weekend, so that's going to be a real test. Luckily, the game is in San Francisco. I feel better about the Niners at home than I do about the Ravens on the road in this one, but that's going to be a huge game.
Maybe a Super Bowl preview. And while Brock Purdy,
I think it should be, honestly.
Brock Purdy's been great. Christian McCaffrey has been the fantasy MVP, but Brock Purdy talked about CMC's actual MVP case after the game.
Dude, I think Christian should be MVP. I really do believe that. He does everything for us, runs the ball well, can catch the ball. He does everything, and so in my eyes, that's an MVP.
There's talk of Brock could be MVP and Christian could be MVP.
I know you're not asking me that question. We might as well go to the next one. You're not about to put me in that one. We got the best running back in the NFL, so for him to get MVP consideration, I think that's his just due. And same way with Brock. Brock's been playing his butt off, so for him to be in a conversation as a teammate, I couldn't be more proud of both of these guys.
Trent Williams is the mountain from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
He's a large human.
You know what's interesting is he used to be a commander. Trent Williams
he was.
did.
Quite good when he was
commander,
with them.
and it's only because Dan Snyder, the worst owner in professional sports history, enabled Bruce Allen, the worst general manager in professional sports history, for years and years and years, despite no evidence to do so other than the fact that they were drinking and golfing buddies. And I guess, Allen had all these racist emails that he didn't want out there. And so as a result, he so destroyed, Bruce Allen did, because he was enabled by Dan Snyder, so destroyed the relationship with Trent Williams that he completely killed the value of Trent Williams and had to basically give him away, the best left tackle in football, for a 3rd and a 5th to the 49ers. By the way, they also gave Chase Young to the Niners for a conditional
Time is a
third.
flat circle.
For a conditional third, which is going to be really late. I mean, because the Niners are going to have one of the worst draft picks in the NFL this year because they're one of the best teams. And so Dan Snyder is the gift that just keeps on giving and giving and giving. And but that's by the way, that's who you heard from. You heard from Trent Williams being asked about Christian McCaffrey or Brock Purdy's MVP candidacy.
I'm just glad that 45% of segment 1 has been about the 4-10 Commanders after their nondescript 28-20 loss to the Los Angeles Rams yesterday. It's one of you find. It's an MVP performance from you, Matthew Berry.
Thank you very much. A lot of people are like, wow, fantasy playoffs, so much is going on. There's no way he can turn this into him ranting about the Commanders again, and yet that's the brilliance of me. That's the magic of me. That's my superpower, Jay Croucher. That's just much like whenever we're hanging out, the three of us, and you make everything about the Collinwood Magpies. I am able to do that about my Commanders.
Impressed you remembered their name. I remember the name of Brock Purdy, who is the MVP favorite now on DraftKings, kind of a runaway favorite as we take a look at the MVP odds on DraftKings, where Purdy is -190, Dak Prescott +450, Lamar Jackson +500, Jalen Hurts +1,000. I don't think he's in this race right now. And then Christian McCaffrey at +1,200. And I think people are having a hard time coming to grips with the fact that Brock Purdy is a -190 MVP favorite. It's like people have a crusade against Purdy, wake up every morning, how am I going to hate Brock Purdy differently today? That's kind of the vibe, but I think we're at the point now where he is just so far ahead of the field in every statistical measure. Right now, his passer rating is 119. Tua is second at 106. His QBR is 76. Dak is second at 72.7. He is almost doubling second in EPA per play. He's first at .391, and Dak Prescott is .225. He's the best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL, and beyond that, just watch the games. The throws that he's making, the touchdown pass to Debo, that is a 10 out of 10 NFL throw. He is not a game manager. He is not a dump-off guy. He is an elite NFL quarterback, and he's been the most productive and most valuable in the NFL this year.
Kudos to you, because you called Brock Purdy at plus money way back around as what you thought was a really good bet. I sort of feel like looking at those odds right now that if I had to place a bet on MVP right now, I think I might take Lamar at plus 500.
I agree.
Just because they're going to play next week, and if Lamar outduels Brock Purdy and the Ravens win that game, then I think Lamar becomes the favorite. I really think it's between those two guys, and I think this Saturday, the game this week is what's going to determine that race.
I 100% agree with that. I think that people are so desperate not to vote for Purdy that they're looking for an excuse, and Lamar will give people an out. If Lamar beats Purdy, and then he beats Miami the following week to clinch the 1 seed, and I make that about plus 350, that parlay, Lamar will win MVP, I think. And so I think that is a good bet at plus 500. I also think if Purdy wins, then I think it's done. And I think Purdy's MVP price should just be the San Francisco money line against Baltimore, which it basically is right now.
What's weird, though, and I don't know, can I ask a question? This is me. Sure. I don't actually know this, but I know you are Mr. Awards Market. Do the same people vote on multiple awards?
Yes, same people vote for every single award.
So to me, because I think this is interesting, because I do think that if Brock Purdy wins MVP, then I do think that, for example, Tyreek Hill wins Offensive Player of the Year. I don't think they're going to want to reward the Niners somehow.
Coach of the Year.
Whether it's Shanahan for Coach of the Year or McCaffrey for Offensive Player of the Year. Like, if Lamar wins MVP, McCaffrey gets Offensive Player of the Year, I think. But I feel like Tyreek will win Offensive Player of the Year if Purdy wins MVP, because they're going to want to reward the Niners, but they're not going to want to give it all to the Niners, because there's, again, if Tyreek Hill gets close to 2,000 after missing a game, Tyreek's got to,
Yeah, and if Tyreek and Lamar go off, then maybe Kyle Shanahan wins Coach of the Year.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think the Niners are getting shut out.
No, for sure not.
Let's take a look at the injuries we're tracking from Week 15. Jamar Chase with the shoulder. He's been designated as day-to-day. Michael Pittman and Trevor Lawrence are both in concussion protocol. Jayden Reed with a toe injury. We have Zack Moss with the arm injury. Will Levis.
He claims he's going to play through it. That just came through.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll talk about that more tomorrow.
Will Levis has a sprained ankle. We'll see.
He also injured his shoulder, apparently.
Yeah, Levis?
Zack Moss.
So Zack Moss is pretty banged up. Marquise Brown with the heel injury, Hunter Henry with a knee, Zay Jones with a hamstring, and poor Keaton Mitchell, he will be expected out for the year with a knee injury. So the exciting young running back with Baltimore, that's a big injury for them guys.
It really is. It's brutal, Keaton Mitchell, and so we'll talk more about the impact, but it'll be Gus Edwards and Justice Hill in Baltimore. One injury not mentioned there is Mitch Trubisky out with an ego. Mason Rudolph is going to start for the Steelers this weekend, Mike Tomlin announcing. So hurt ego there with Mitch Trubisky. He's lost his job to Mason Rudolph.
When we're back, Weekend Warriors and Sunday Scaries right after this. Heads up, we have a special edition of Fantasy Football Pregame on Saturday, December 23rd, live from 1 to 3. Barry, Jay, and Lawrence will be previewing the Christmas weekend slate, leading into Football Night in America, followed by 2 NFL games. Tweet us as always using the hashtag FFPregame.
This is going to be interesting, by the way. So I'm on both Fantasy Football Pregame at 1:30 and Football Night in America at 3 o'clock. I wonder if I have to wear my suit on football on Fantasy Football Pregame, because I'm going to have to literally get off set. I'm not going to have time to redo my makeup or anything like that. Get off set and run all the way. It's actually next door that way, but Football Night, it's over there.
About 15 feet.
It's like 15 feet, but still, we get off the air and they're on the air, and right, usually my segment.
Well, me and Lawrence will go the other way there, where we'll dress as casual as humanly possible to really maximize
shorts and
flip-flops.
Flip-flops.
Yeah. I'll wear my Russell Wilson hoodie. Yeah, it'd be great.
All right.
I don't know. I'm going to have to figure that out.
Sounds like you're going to be
because I don't dress quickly.
Weekend warrior.
I might have to be a weekend warrior.
And we'll get into the weekend warrior, starting with Jared Goff here, Matthew. 5 touchdowns through the air. Sam LaPorta catches 3 of them.
Yeah, you're welcome, America. You're welcome. Now, you're like, what do you do, Barry? I'll tell you what I did.
What are they welcome for?
Because I put Jared Goff on the hate list. Oh. And that motivated him, clearly, to have his best performance of the year. So he'd been bad. The offensive line was banged up. And Denver had played really good defense recently. It all lined up for me to motivate secretly Jared Goff, who I have a number of leagues, to have an unbelievable game as well. It's his second career game with 5 or more touchdown passes, but his first with Detroit. In their previous 6 games, Denver had allowed just 4 touchdown passes. 4 touchdown passes total in their 6 games. One of the stats that I used to make my case against Jared Goff in the hate list, but secretly, I knew that Jared Goff would read that and respond. So yes, you're welcome, America. You're welcome.
Sam LaPorta, a huge beneficiary of those 5 touchdowns.
Huge.
5 catches, 56 yards, 3 touchdowns. As you see, Sam LaPorta, the Week 15 fantasy leader at tight end. Him, David Njoku, monster weekends here.
Right, and you see 2 rookies up there. I mean, him and Trey McBride are 1 and 3. Sam La League winner, really impressive. Already top 3 in receptions and touchdowns in a season by a rookie tight end. His 3rd game this year with 20 or more fantasy points. His 5th game with 15 or more fantasy points. He has been a league winner. Here's what's great about Jared Goff. We talked about this. We did talk about this in the preseason, which is one of the reasons why we liked Amon-Ra St. Brown as my ride or die, and we like Jared Goff as a sleeper, is because of his playoff schedule. At home this past week. Now he goes to at Minnesota. Then he's at Dallas, and then he's home to Minnesota if you play in Week 18. He has nothing but dome games the rest of the way.
Yep, indeed. And one of those, 2 of those dome matchups are against the Minnesota Vikings, and Ty Chandler was an absolute monster on Saturday, particularly after DJ Reader went out for the Bengals. Their run defense just had no prayer whatsoever until they went away from Ty Chandler on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 and sneaked Nick Mullins instead twice unsuccessfully to lose the game and potentially end their season. But Ty Chandler just looked so much more explosive than Alexander Mattison has. I think we're a little bit biased because the Bengals' run defense is really bad and worse than the run defenses that Mattison has faced. But still, I think you can start Ty Chandler with confidence again if Mattison is out.
Week 15 of last season, that was the last time somebody had more fantasy points as a Vikings running back than Ty Chandler had this past weekend as well. To your point, he looked the part, right? He looked really good. I don't know how they go back to Alexander Mattison. Alexander Mattison, we've been talking for a while. He doesn't look great. It's one of the reasons why we thought there might be something with Cam Akers, because we thought he might be able to sneak in. It doesn't feel like Kevin O'Connell and staff love Alexander Mattison. So Chandler's performance certainly gives them. And by the way, what's the other option? Let Nick Mullins throw it? I know Nick Mullins wound up with a good fantasy game.
He was terrible.
He was awful.
He was horrific.
He threw up some prayers.
And got really bailed out and should have had a much worse day.
Yeah. But anyway, some of the moments that weren't horrible, they went to Jordan Addison, who was 6 for 111, 2 touchdowns, 1 remarkable cut touchdown off his shoelaces. I'm not sure Mullins should have thrown that ball.
It was a terrible throw. He catches off his shoelaces, then he runs all the way to the end zone. And the other one, Mullins throws across his body into coverage, and somehow Addison comes up with it.
Yeah, he had a little Mahomes in the brain, but I don't know about the Mac Jones in the body.
There's no way he's better than Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs is a better quarterback.
No, not even close.
I agree.
But it's
Bring back Dobby.
It's going to be the Mullins show again next week, though.
Another weekend warrior, Barry. Rashee Rice catches all 9 of his targets, 91 yards and a touchdown. This is the receiver from the Chiefs offense right now.
Finally, it finally happens. 100% route participation, 92% snap rate. It's finally all happening for Rashee Rice. It's his 4th straight game with 7 or more receptions. He scored in 3 of those 4 games as well. 30% target share over that stretch. Over the last 4 weeks, he's averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. We talked about Rashee Rice was going to be a thing this year. It is officially a thing. You see Clyde Edwards-Helaire on your screen right there as well. It was not a particularly efficient day. He caught basically 1 big pass, and then the touchdown pass he caught was sort of ridiculous. Mahomes sort of threw it up there and he came down with it. But still, a productive fantasy day for CEH as Isaiah Pacheco missed another game. We'll see if Pacheco is back this week. He may not be, and which means CEH, once again, might be a viable flex play, low-end wide running back too. We talked about him on Fantasy Football pregame.
Yep.
And then Jay, Noah Brown with a big day, 8 of 11, catches 8 of 11 passes, 82 yards, and a touchdown for Noah Brown.
Yep, and we talked about this all through the week that someone had to emerge on the Texans offense just because there are no guys left with Nico Collins and Tank Dell out, and Noah Brown's the most talented guy in that receiving core left, and he seemed to have a connection with Case Keenum, and I think that going forward, if Nico Collins is out again, he's going to be in line for monster days with CJ Stroud presumably back.
Matthew, our last weekend warrior, David Njoku, we said it right behind Sam LaPorta on the tight end finishes, catches 10 passes, 104 yards, and a touchdown. He's on some kind of run right now.
Yeah, and there's a real connection between him and Joe Flacco as well. He now has back-to-back games with 25 or more fantasy points since week 5. He's the 5th best tight end in fantasy football, and so Njoku, who gets the Texans next week, and then the Jets, which is actually a pretty good matchup for tight ends because they're so strong on the corners. Njoku and Flacco, that's a thing. It really is. Good to see.
Let's get into Sunday scaries, and it doesn't get much more scarier than this when you start with Derrick Henry. Matthew, there's a stat on Derrick Henry that's never been accomplished before that just blows my mind.
He's the first player ever. This is King Henry we're talking about. The first player ever in NFL history to have 20 touches in an NFL game and less than 15 yards.
When I heard that, it's mind-blowing.
I was just like, wait, he accomplished that and Arthur Smith wasn't his coordinator? This is crazy. This was a bad day at the office, especially given the fact that coming into this game, he'd had 5 straight 100-yard games against the Texans. Maybe the Houston defense had heard all of that. Just, again, Henry's sort of gotten you there on touchdowns, but he hasn't. We've talked about this.
It's got the turning circle of a truck right now.
Tajay Spears looks like the better running back, the more explosive running back on that team. I know Henry's the legend, but after the game, he was talking about it. It feels like this is the last time we see him in a Titans uniform this year.
I suspect so. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the last time we see Bijan Robinson in a Falcons uniform, as he will be remaining with Arthur Smith the remainder of the season. But he went 7 carries for 11 yards, did absolutely nothing in a game that probably cost the Falcons their season.
Good.
Honestly, he lost the fumble. He had 1 reception for 3 yards. And in what should have been a pristine matchup against the Panthers' run defense, able to do absolutely nothing.
He had 14 yards on 8 touches. Those are both season lows, and that doesn't include, of course, the migraine game. But other than that, 14 yards on 18 touches. So only 23% of the team's rushing attempts. He played under 60% of the snaps. It was insane. Hey, Steven, did you get that tweet I sent you? Please throw that up here. This is my friend Ben Gretsch. This is great. At Yards Per Gretsch. Reported last week that Arthur Smith's job is safe, barring a late season collapse. Falcons players knew the assignment.
God.
Absolutely.
It's looking grim right now in Atlanta. Again.
He should not. It's malpractice.
Yes.
It's him and Ron Rivera. It's malpractice is what Arthur Smith is doing.
Yep. 100%.
They're going to hire a new coach, and we're all going to talk ourselves into Kyle Pitts next summer.
Anyone would be better. Again, I've said this a million times. It's either a massive failure in the drafting process or a massive failure in coaching.
They need a new quarterback.
Well, but still, you're on the road at Carolina. You know your quarterback isn't any good.
Yeah.
Feed it to your best player. This isn't a fantasy thing. It's an NFL thing. Arthur Smith drives me crazy. He deserves what he got. I'm glad for the Panthers. Go Panthers. Keep pounding.
Taking our last break. Yep, keep pounding. Last call when we're back. Best bets for Monday Night Football. Don't forget, on DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Download the app and use the promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is last call. Let's take a look at the most bet Monday Night Football props, courtesy of our friends at DraftKings. DK Metcalf receiving yards over 62.5 is number 1, followed by A.J. Brown receiving yards over 81.5. DK Metcalf alternate receiving yards 50+. That's minus 245 on the odds board. DeAndre Swift rushing yards over 58.5 is minus 115. Jalen Hurts passing touchdowns over 1.5. Jay, what do you like tonight?
I'm actually riding with the public tonight for a change. I like DeAndre Swift. His rushing yards over. I'm hoofing with the public a little bit, Matthew. And the reason why is since week 7 of the NFL season, you know, it's the worst rushing defense in the NFL. That would be the Seattle Seahawks. And now they go, the Eagles get them with their offensive line. Jalen Hurts, if he does play under the weather, I think they'll lean on Swift. Swift has been marginalized a little bit, but he's still the guy. He had 11 carries against Dallas. No other Philly running back had more than 4. I think he gets work against the suspect Seattle defense.
I like that one.
What are you looking at, Matthew?
I'm looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba. Look, we expect Seattle to have to throw, whether it's Geno Smith or Drew Lock under center. They're going to have to throw against the Eagles team that they're going to be an underdog to. They'll be trailing. So Jackson Smith and Jigba over 37.5 receiving yards. He's beaten this number in 5 of the last 6 weeks. No team in the NFL has allowed more yards to the slot this year than the Philadelphia Eagle. That's an area of the field to attack. And so JSN, who lines up majority of his snaps in the slot, give me the over on 37.5. I don't think that's that big a number for him.
Yeah, JSN's been slept on over the last month of the season.
That's very low. Yeah.
I'm going with Jake Elliott over 1.5 field goals. The Eagles have had their red zone struggles. We're going with Jake Elliott. That's plus money, by the way. I think it's about plus 114 right now on DraftKings. And then we got to get you a sack bet. So I worked with Penn State Blake. We cooked up one for you. Josh Sweat over 0.25 sacks. That is plus 124. He's had 26 pressures over his last 6 games. It's only equated to 1 sack. But in his first 5.5 sacks, he had 33 pressures. He's due. He's going to fall into one tonight against Drew Lock or Geno Smith.
There you go. All right. Kicker prop.
Sack prop.
We got a sack prop. We got a JSN prop. And we got a riding the public prop.
Yes, exactly. I love the public.
We cover all bases.
All bases.
Big public guy.
It's all coming together. It's
Take
all
the running
happening.
back over. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Saquon Barkley had a bad game. We got sidetracked during Sunday Scaries.
5 segments ago.
He was bad, but it looks like Tommy DeVito is going to be back for next week. So there we go. Hey, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay and Connor, I'm Matthew. We'll see you tomorrow. Hope you survived Week 15. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.